The main hall of Station Arcturus Prime stretched out like a massive cathedral in space. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy filled the chamber, their different forms and colors creating a strange beauty. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated in special containers filled with liquid. A few moved on multiple limbs that clicked against the metal floor. Commander Tae-sung stood near the back of the room with his small team. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's military, nothing fancy or decorated. His dark eyes watched the other delegates carefully. After 3 years in the Galactic Council, humans still felt like outsiders here. Most aliens barely noticed them. Lieutenant Yuna stood beside him, her arms crossed as she studied the crowd. She was shorter than Tae-sung but carried herself with quiet confidence. Years of training in extreme environments had made her tough and smart. She leaned closer to whisper something, but Tae-sung raised his hand slightly. Wait. On the main stage, a massive creature demonstrated combat moves. General Krath of the Vraxian Elite Guard stood nearly 3 meters tall. His thick armor gleamed under the lights. 4 arms moved with surprising speed as he showed different fighting techniques to the crowd. The Vraxians were famous warriors, respected across many star systems. Several aliens in the audience made sounds of approval. Some clapped with hands or tentacles, others stamped their feet. The annual military summit always included these demonstrations. Each species showed off their best soldiers and newest weapons. It was part show, part serious business. Krath finished his demonstration and turned to face the crowd. His translator device made his voice sound smooth despite his alien vocal cords. He spoke about training methods and warrior discipline. Then his large eyes scanned the room and stopped on the human delegation. A strange sound came from Krath, something like laughter. The translator converted it to actual laughter for everyone to hear. Several other aliens joined in, though some seemed uncomfortable. Tae-sung felt Yuna tense beside him but kept his own face neutral. The Vraxian general pointed one of his 4 arms toward the humans. His voice carried across the hall with clear mockery. He said humans looked weak and soft. Their small bodies seemed fragile compared to proper warriors. He doubted any human soldier could pass even the first week of basic training in a real military. More laughter filled the chamber. Not everyone joined in, but enough did to make it sting. Tae-sung noticed other delegates watching the humans to see their reaction. Some looked curious. Others seemed sympathetic. A few appeared to enjoy the embarrassment. Yuna leaned close again and whispered that they should ignore it. Walk away with dignity. She was probably right. Tae-sung had spent years learning when to fight and when to retreat. This was supposed to be a diplomatic mission, not a combat operation. But Krath was not finished. The general stepped down from the stage and walked directly toward the human group. His heavy footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet hall. Everyone watch now. The Vraxian stopped a few meters away and looked down at Tae-sung. The general spoke slowly, making sure his words were clear. He challenged Tae-sung directly. Prove that humans deserve respect. Show that human soldiers are more than children playing at war. Or admit that humanity has no place among real warriors. The chamber fell completely silent. Tae-sung could hear his own breathing. He felt his team watching him, waiting for his decision. Behind Krath, dozens of alien military commanders observed with interest. This moment would define how the galaxy saw humanity for years to come. Tae-sung stepped forward. He moved calmly, without aggression or fear. He met the general's eyes and spoke in a quiet voice that somehow carried through the hall. He accepted the challenge. Name the terms. Krath seemed surprised for a moment, then pleased. He explained the terms quickly. A military exercise within 1 standard week. 5 human soldiers against 50 alien warriors from various species. Realistic combat scenario with full monitoring. No permanent harm, but the humans would face real danger. Yuna made a small sound of protest beside Tae-sung, but he did not look at her. He kept his eyes on Krath and nodded once. Agreed. The Vraxian general smiled with his alien features and turned back to the crowd. He announced the challenge to applause and excited chatter. As the gathering broke up into smaller groups, Tae-sung's team gathered around him. Yuna looked worried. Sergeant Dae-won, a quiet man with steady hands, asked what the plan was. Corporal Hyunwoo adjusted his glasses nervously. Specialist Jae-hee, the youngest of the group, seemed excited rather than afraid. Tae-sung told them they would talk privately later. First, they needed to gather information. Learn everything about the exercise location, the opponents, and the rules. He sent each team member on specific tasks. They separated into the crowd, professional and focused. Ambassador Haiwan found Taesung an hour later in a quiet corridor. The ambassador was an older woman who had served Earth's diplomatic corps for decades. She looked tired and concerned. She asked Taesung why he had accepted such a dangerous challenge. The commander explained that refusing would have been worse. It would confirm what many aliens already believed, that humans were weak and afraid. That Earth had nothing to offer the galactic community except raw materials and cheap labor. Haiwan understood but worried about the consequences of failure. If Taesung's team could not complete the exercise, it would damage human reputation even more. The odds were impossible. 50 trained alien warriors with superior technology against 5 humans. It looked like suicide. Taesung smiled slightly, a rare expression on his usually serious face. He told the ambassador not to worry. His team had faced worse odds before. The difference was that those other times nobody had been watching. Nobody had known what human special forces could really do. That evening, the human team met in their assigned quarters. The room was small but private. Taesung spread out the information they had gathered. The exercise would take place on a moon with thin atmosphere and extreme temperatures. The terrain was rough and dangerous. Their mission was to infiltrate a defended installation, retrieve intelligence data, and extract safely. The alien defenders would include warriors from 10 different species, all experienced, all equipped with advanced weapons and armor, all convinced the humans would fail within hours. Yuna pointed out the obvious problems. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. The environment was hostile. The enemy had better equipment. She was not afraid, just stating facts. They needed a solid plan. Taesung nodded and began outlining his approach. They would not try to match the aliens in strength or technology. Instead, they would use speed, stealth, and tactics that most species never encountered. Human special forces had spent centuries perfecting certain methods that came from thousands of years of constant warfare. Day 1 asked about the environmental challenges. Taesung explained that humans could survive in conditions that would kill or disable many alien species. Their adaptability was one advantage nobody seemed to consider. The thin atmosphere and temperature extremes were problems, but not impossible ones. The team worked late into the night cycle, planning and preparing. Each member had specific skills and responsibilities. Jae-hee would handle long-range observation and precision work. Yunwoo would manage communications and electronic warfare. Day 1 would deal with any obstacles or diversions needed. Yuna would coordinate tactical movements. Taesung would lead and adapt the plan as situations changed. He reminded them that no plan survived first contact with the enemy. They needed to stay flexible and trust their training. Trust each other. Across the station, alien warriors prepared for what they expected to be an easy exercise. They shared drinks and made jokes about the foolish humans. Some placed bets on how quickly Taesung would surrender. The general consensus was less than 6 hours. Krath reviewed the exercise parameters with satisfaction. The scenario was difficult but fair. He would even tell his soldiers to accept surrender quickly and treat the humans with some dignity when they gave up. No need to humiliate them too badly. But in their small quarters, the human team showed no signs of doubt or fear. They checked their equipment with professional care. They reviewed scenarios and contingencies. They prepared the way soldiers prepare when lives depend on performance. 1 week would pass quickly. Then the galaxy would learn something new about humanity. Something that might change how every species viewed the small, quiet race from Earth. 2 hours into the exercise, Krath had lost contact with 12 more guards. His defensive perimeter was collapsing without a single shot being fired. Security cameras showed nothing useful. Brief flickers of movement. Shadows that disappeared too quickly. The humans were ghosts. In the observation room, the atmosphere had changed completely. The casual conversation stopped. Alien commanders watched the screens with intense focus. Some made notes on portable devices. Others whispered to each other in various languages, trying to understand what they were seeing. A senior commander from the Kelthian Republic spoke up. She was an old warrior who had seen actual combat decades ago. She recognized the pattern. The humans were not trying to fight their way through. They were using infiltration tactics, psychological warfare, making the defenders doubt their own sensors and training. Ambassador Heywan listened to the discussions around her with growing satisfaction. Other delegates were starting to realize that humans might not be the weak species everyone assumed. She still worried about her team down on that moon, but the worry was mixed with pride. On the moon's surface, Jae-hee lay motionless on a ridge half a kilometer from the installation. Her position gave her a perfect view of the entire compound. She had been there for an hour, completely invisible. Her camouflage suit matched the rocks around her. Her breathing was slow and controlled. Through her scope, she watched alien patrols search for threats they could not find. She whispered position updates into her communication device. Hyunwoo received them and coordinated with the rest of the team. The humans moved like pieces on a game board, always one step ahead. Hyunwoo sat in a shallow cave 300 meters from the installation. His equipment was spread around him in organized chaos. Multiple screens showed data streams from alien sensors. He had tapped into their communication network without them noticing. Every order Krath gave, Hyunwoo heard. He also sent false signals. Phantom contacts that made aliens look in wrong directions. Sensor errors that created confusion. Nothing obvious. Just small problems that added up. The defenders were being overwhelmed by information that led nowhere. Daewon moved through the outer areas like smoke. He found detection devices and disabled them with surgical precision. He placed small charges in strategic locations, not to cause damage, but to create noise and distraction when needed. His work was invisible until the moment it mattered. Tae-sung and Yuna advanced together toward the installation's main wall. They moved during moments when cameras pointed away. They stepped in places where motion sensors had blind spots. Years of training made their movements instinctive. They did not think about each step. They just knew where to be. Inside the installation, Krath made a decision. He pulled all external patrols back to defensive positions around the central building. Better to protect the objective directly than waste soldiers searching empty terrain. The humans would have to come to him eventually. Then he would have them. 3 hours into the exercise, Tae-sung and Yuna reached the installation wall. They pressed against it, listening. Above them, guards walked patrol routes on the wall top. The schedule was predictable. 30-second gaps between passes. More than enough time. Yuna pulled out climbing equipment. Simple hooks and rope. No powered gear, no noise. She scaled the wall during the gap and secured a line. Tae-sung followed. They dropped down inside the compound while cameras pointed elsewhere. Still no alarms. The compound interior was well lit and organized. Buildings clustered around a central structure that held the objective. Guards stood at every entrance. Patrols moved in overlapping patterns. It looked impossible to penetrate. But Tae-sung had studied the design for days. He knew its weaknesses. Every defensive system has flaws, gaps that designers miss, points where human intuition finds paths that computer models do not see. Tae-sung led Yuna through shadows and blind spots. They moved when guards blinked. They froze when sensors swept past. Patient and precise, Daewon activated his first diversion. A small explosion on the compound's eastern edge. Not dangerous, just loud. Alarms triggered. Guards rushed toward the sound. In the confusion, Tae-sung and Yuna slipped into the central building through a maintenance entrance. Inside, they found themselves in a corridor with cameras and motion sensors. Hyunwoo had sent them the security codes days ago. He had extracted them from supposedly secure alien databases. The sensors did not react as the two humans passed through. The objective was on the 3rd floor. A data storage device in a locked room. 2 guards stood outside. Tae-sung and Yuna approached from a side corridor. They moved silently, years of practice making every step soundless. The guards never saw them coming. Yuna took the first one with a quick strike that left him unconscious but unharmed. Tae-sung handled the second with equal efficiency. Both aliens dropped without making a sound. The humans laid them carefully aside and opened the door. The data device sat on a pedestal in the center of the room. Tae-sung expected traps or additional security. But the aliens had not anticipated anyone reaching this point. They had put all their faith in the outer defenses. The commander picked up the device and secured it in his pack. That was when the alarms finally triggered. Motion sensors inside the room activated the moment Tae-sung touched the device. Lights flashed. Sirens wailed. The entire installation went on full alert. The easy part was over. In the observation room, aliens leaned forward. Finally, something was happening. The humans had somehow reached the objective. which was shocking enough. But now they were trapped inside with 40 alien soldiers surrounding the building. This was where the exercise would end. Krath smiled grimly. The humans had done better than expected, much better. But there was no escape now. He ordered his soldiers to seal all exits and move in, capture the humans alive if possible. He was actually curious to learn how they had penetrated so far. Tae-sung and Yuna did not panic. They had planned for this moment. Yuna spoke into her communicator. One word. Now. Outside, Daewon activated more diversions. Explosions blossomed around the compound perimeter. Not large enough to harm anyone, but enough to create chaos. Alien soldiers rushed toward the explosions, confused about what was happening. Krath shouted orders, trying to maintain control, but his forces were scattered, responding to multiple perceived threats. The humans had created chaos from order. Tae-sung and Yuna moved quickly through the building. Not toward exits, but upward. They climbed stairs to the roof access. Alien soldiers expected them to try escaping through doors or windows. Nobody watched the roof carefully. They emerged onto the flat roof and ran toward the edge. Below, aliens searched frantically. Above, the sky was turning orange as the sun moved across the horizon. Tae-sung pulled out climbing gear again. They rappelled down the building's rear wall while everyone focused on the front. They hit the ground and sprinted toward the compound wall. Guards saw them and opened fire. Training rounds hit nearby, marking impact points. The humans dodged and weaved. Yuna returned fire, not to hit, but to make the guards take cover. Suppressive fire, basic tactic, expertly executed. They reached the wall and went over. On the other side, they dropped into rough terrain and kept running. Behind them, aliens organized pursuit. Vehicles started up. Aircraft lifted off. The hunt was on. Jae-hee watched through her scope as Tae-sung and Yuna disappeared into a ravine. She whispered coordinates to Hyunwoo. The team had planned extraction routes days ago. Multiple paths, multiple options. Always have a backup plan. The observation room erupted in noise. Aliens argued about what they had witnessed. How had the humans breached such strong defenses? How had they escaped the building? Some species blamed Krath for poor planning. Others admitted the humans showed unexpected skill. The Kelthian commander spoke again, her voice cutting through the chaos. She pointed out that the exercise was not over. The humans still needed to reach the extraction point. They were being pursued by forces with superior speed and equipment. This was far from finished, but Ambassador Hae-won noticed something others missed. The humans were not running in panic. They moved with purpose and control. They knew where they were going. And based on what she had seen so far, they probably had plans for the pursuit as well. On the moon, 5 human soldiers executed a plan developed through centuries of military evolution. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had advantages the aliens did not understand. Advantages born from a species that had never known true peace. Advantages that were about to become very clear. The pursuit began in full force. Krath commanded 3 vehicles loaded with soldiers and 2 small aircraft for aerial support. The humans had a 15-minute head start, but the aliens had speed and technology. The general expected to catch them within an hour. The terrain worked against vehicles. Sharp rocks threatened tires and treads. Deep crevices forced detours. The aircraft had better luck, scanning the ground with thermal sensors. They picked up 5 human heat signatures moving through a canyon system. Krath ordered the aircraft to track but not engage. He wanted his ground forces to make the capture. The vehicles pushed forward as fast as conditions allowed. Soldiers checked weapons and prepared for contact. The mood was determined but confident. Numbers and technology would win, but the humans were not simply running. Daewon had seeded their escape route with surprises. Small charges hidden in rocks, tripwires that triggered distractions. Nothing lethal, but enough to slow pursuit. The first vehicle hit a triggered rock slide that blocked the path. No one was hurt, but they lost valuable time. The second vehicle took a different route and drove over a pressure plate. A loud explosion threw dirt and smoke into the air. The vehicle was fine, but the soldiers inside panicked momentarily. They stopped to check for damage. More time lost. Hyunwoo interfered with aircraft communication systems. Static filled their radio channels. GPS coordinates jumped and flickered. The pilots compensated but had to work harder to maintain tracking. Human heat signatures appeared and disappeared on their screens. Was that interference, or were the humans somehow masking themselves? Jae-hee had abandoned her observation position and was moving to a new location. She carried her rifle and equipment across difficult terrain without slowing. Hours of physical training let her maintain a pace that would exhaust most beings. She reached a ridge overlooking the pursuit route and set up again. Through her scope, she watched the alien forces struggle through the canyon. She could take shots from here. Training rounds would mark several soldiers before they even knew where she was. But Tae-sung had ordered patience. Only fire if absolutely necessary. Better to remain a ghost than reveal positions. The chase continued for hours. The sun moved across the sky, raising temperatures. Most alien species wore environmental suits that protected them from the heat. The suits also limited mobility and consumed power. Several soldiers began showing signs of fatigue. The humans wore minimal protection, light clothing and breathing filters. They relied on their body's natural ability to regulate temperature through sweating, an advantage that seemed minor until pursuit stretched into its fourth hour. The aliens were slowing. The humans maintained pace. In the observation room, alien commanders began talking among themselves. Some recognized what was happening. Humans were persistence hunters. Their ancestors had chased prey across African plains for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. That ancient ability remained in their genetics. A biologist from the Threllan Dominion explained to nearby observers. Humans evolved as endurance runners. Their cooling system was incredibly efficient. Their leg structure allowed them to maintain steady speed for extended periods. In a short sprint, many species outran humans. In a long chase, almost nothing could match them. Krath realized the problem but refused to give up. He ordered soldiers to rotate. Fresh teams would take over the pursuit while tired ones rested. The vehicles and aircraft maintained pressure. The humans would have to stop eventually. Everyone needed rest, but the human team had trained for this exact scenario. They knew how to push their bodies to the limit and beyond. They knew how to find energy when logic said they should collapse. They knew the difference between can't continue and don't want to continue, and they chose to continue. 6 hours into the pursuit, something changed. The human heat signatures on aircraft sensors suddenly split up. 5 signatures became 10, then 15. The pilots reported massive interference. They could not tell which readings were real humans and which were decoys. Hyunwoo had deployed portable heat sources and signal generators across the area. Simple technology, but effective. The alien sensors were overwhelmed with false data. Their advanced targeting systems became useless. They could not tell what was real. Ground forces split up to chase different signatures. Some found nothing. Others found small devices generating heat and radio signals. No humans. The pursuit had become a chaotic mess. Krath tried to regroup his forces, but coordination was breaking down. The real human team moved toward the extraction point using a route nobody was watching. They passed within a kilometer of alien forces who were searching in wrong directions. Tae-sung led them through a narrow ravine that sensors could not penetrate properly. Yuna checked her team's condition as they moved. Everyone was tired, breathing hard, sweating heavily. But they were functional. They could keep going. Years of training had prepared them for exactly this level of physical demand. This was uncomfortable, not impossible. 8 hours into the exercise, the human team reached a position 2 kilometers from the extraction point. They could see it in the distance. A clear area where their shuttle would land. No aliens between them and safety. But Krath would realize where they were heading soon. As expected, alien forces redirected toward the extraction point. If they could not catch the humans during the chase, they would wait at the destination. Aircraft moved into position overhead. Vehicles raced to set up blocking positions. This would be the final confrontation. In the observation room, tension was high. The humans had performed far beyond expectations. They had infiltrated a defended position, retrieved the objective, and evaded pursuit for hours. But now they faced the final test. Could they actually complete the extraction against fresh alien forces? Ambassador Haewon watched the screens with clenched fists. Her team was so close, but close meant nothing if they could not finish. She found herself silently urging them forward. Whatever happened in the next hour would define human standing in the galaxy for years. Tae-sung studied the extraction point through his field scope. He counted alien positions and calculated angles of approach. The enemy had set up a good defensive position, but they expected the humans to do the obvious thing. Walk straight toward the landing zone. The commander had no intention of doing the obvious. He gathered his team and explained the final phase. They would not approach the extraction point. Not yet. First they would rest. Actually rest in the open while aliens searched frantically. Daewon found a small cave that blocked sensors. The 5 humans crawled inside and took turns sleeping. 2 stayed awake while 3 rested. 30-minute rotations. It was not enough sleep, but it was something. Meanwhile, alien forces exhausted themselves maintaining high alert. 2 hours passed. The aliens grew tired and frustrated. Where were the humans? Sensors showed nothing. Had they found a way to completely mask their presence? Krath ordered continued vigilance, but he could see his soldiers struggling. They had been alert for 10 hours straight. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the moon's surface, Taesung led his team out of hiding. They moved during the transition between day and night, when sensors struggled with changing thermal conditions. They approached the extraction point from an unexpected angle. Jae-hee set up on high ground and finally used her rifle. She did not aim at soldiers. She aimed at equipment. Sensors, communication relays, and vehicle components. Her shots were precise and deliberate. Each one created confusion and forced aliens to respond. While aliens reacted to the distant shots, Taesung and the others moved into the extraction zone. They reached the center and activated their beacon. The shuttle received the signal and began its descent from orbit. 30 seconds until arrival, alien forces realized what had happened and rushed toward the extraction point, but they were out of position. By the time they arrived, the shuttle was landing. The humans boarded quickly. Ramp up, engines powering. The shuttle lifted off as aliens reached the zone. Krath stood in the dust thrown up by the shuttle's engines, watching it climb into the darkening sky. Around him, his soldiers looked exhausted and defeated. They had failed to stop 5 humans. 50 trained warriors with advanced technology had been completely outmaneuvered. Inside the shuttle, the human team sat in silence. They were exhausted, dirty, and sore, but they had completed the mission. Taesung looked at each member of his team and nodded. They had proven something important today, something the galaxy needed to understand. 5 days passed in a blur of activity. The Galactic Council prepared the exercise with typical efficiency. They selected a small moon orbiting a gas giant in a nearby system. The moon had been used for training exercises before. Its hostile environment tested soldiers without actually killing them. The moon's atmosphere was thin, barely enough to breathe without assistance. Temperatures swung from freezing cold during the night to dangerous heat during the day. The surface was covered in sharp rocks and deep crevices. Most species needed special suits just to walk around safely. A temporary installation was built on a plateau. It looked like a small military base with walls, towers, and sensor equipment. Inside, the council placed a data storage device. That was the target. The humans had to get in, take the data, and get out. Simple mission. Nearly impossible odds. 50 alien warriors arrived 2 days before the exercise. They came from 10 different species, each bringing their own fighting styles and technologies. Krath commanded them personally. He organized patrols, set up defensive positions, and planned response strategies. The alien soldiers were confident. They had superior numbers, better equipment, and home advantage. The installation was designed to be defended. Multiple layers of security, overlapping sensor fields, and clear firing lines. A textbook defensive position. Back on station Arcturus Prime, observers gathered in a control room. Large screens showed feeds from cameras and sensors on the moon. Comfortable seats and refreshment stations made it feel like watching entertainment rather than a military exercise. Many aliens brought guests to watch the humans fail. Ambassador Hae-won sat in the back row, trying not to show her worry. She had sent messages to Earth requesting backup plans. What would happen if Taesung's team was injured or killed? How would this affect diplomatic relations? The responses from Earth were frustratingly calm. Trust the commander. Trust the team. The human team spent those 5 days in intense preparation. They studied every piece of data about the moon, the installation, and their opponents. Taesung made them memorize terrain maps until they could navigate blind. Yuna drilled tactical scenarios until everyone responded without thinking. Hyunwoo tested his communication equipment repeatedly. He found ways to intercept alien signal frequencies. He built small programs that could confuse enemy sensors. His workspace was covered in technical equipment that looked primitive compared to alien technology, but he knew how to make it work. Daewon prepared his tools with calm precision. He was responsible for breaching obstacles and creating diversions. His equipment bag held items that seemed simple. Charges, timers, cables, basic electronics. Nothing fancy. But in the right hands, simple tools became powerful weapons. Jae-hee spent hours checking her rifle and scope. She would provide overwatch during the mission, long-range observation and precision fire if needed. She was the youngest team member but had proven herself in situations that would have broken veteran soldiers from other militaries. On the night before departure, Tae-sung called his team together for final words. They sat in a circle in their quarters, quiet and focused. The commander spoke simply. Tomorrow they would face a test. Not just of their skills, but of everything humanity had learned about warfare through centuries of conflict. He reminded them that most alien species had known long periods of peace. Wars happened, but rarely. Combat was something studied in schools, not experienced in reality. Humanity was different. Humans had been fighting each other and their environment since the beginning. War was in their history, their culture, their blood. That experience gave them advantages. Humans understood violence in ways peaceful species could not. They knew how to survive in terrible conditions. They knew how to keep fighting when logic said they should quit. They knew how to win when winning seemed impossible. Yuna asked if they were really ready. Tae-sung looked at each team member carefully. Then he smiled slightly. They were ready. More ready than anyone watching tomorrow would expect. The aliens thought they knew what human soldiers could do. They were wrong. The team shared a simple meal together. They talked about small things, avoiding the mission ahead. Old stories from training. Jokes about past operations, the comfortable silence of people who trusted each other completely. Then they rested. Tomorrow would be demanding. On the moon, the alien defenders prepared for what they expected to be a short exercise. Krath walked the perimeter one last time, checking positions. His soldiers were well trained and equipped. The installation was secure. Detection systems covered every approach. Nothing could get close without being spotted. He had placed his best warriors on the outer security posts. Quick response teams waited inside the installation. Air support was available if needed. The humans would be detected, surrounded, and forced to surrender within hours. It was inevitable. Some of his soldiers asked if they should go easy on the humans. Krath considered the question. He did not want to hurt the humans unnecessarily. When they surrendered, his warriors would accept it immediately, treat them with dignity. The point was to prove superiority, not cause injury. That night, both sides prepared in their own ways. The aliens were confident and relaxed. They told jokes and shared predictions about how the exercise would go. Some wagered on specific times the humans would give up. The mood was light, almost festive. The humans were quiet and focused. They did not joke or make predictions. They checked equipment one final time. They reviewed their plan in silence, each person clear on their role. They breathed the thin air through filters and felt the cold bite of the moon's night. This was their element. Dawn came slowly on the moon. The sun rose over the horizon, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. In the observation room on Station Arcturus Prime, screens came alive with camera feeds. Dozens of aliens settled into seats watching eagerly. A shuttle descended from orbit carrying the human team. It landed at the designated insertion point, 5 kilometers from the installation. The distance was supposed to give the defenders time to prepare, to track the humans as they approached. To set up the perfect ambush, the shuttle ramp lowered. 5 figures emerged dressed in simple combat gear. No heavy armor, no powered suits, just basic equipment and weapons. They looked small and fragile compared to the alien warriors waiting for them. Tae-sung led his team away from the shuttle without hesitation. They moved in a loose formation, adapting to the terrain naturally. The shuttle lifted off behind them, leaving them alone on the hostile moon. The exercise had officially begun. In the installation, Krath watched screens showing the human approach. His sensors tracked them easily. Their body heat stood out against the cold ground. Their movement created vibrations in the rock. They made no attempt to hide. This would be over quickly. He ordered outer patrols to maintain position but stay alert. No need to rush. Let the humans come closer. Let them feel the weight of the challenge. When they realized how hopeless the situation was, they would surrender peacefully. The first hour passed slowly. Observers watched the humans trek across difficult terrain. They climbed over rocks, crossed ravines, and pushed forward steadily. Some aliens made comments about human determination. Others grew bored waiting for something interesting to happen. Then something strange occurred. The outer security posts stopped reporting. All of them. At the same time, no alarms, no combat alerts, just silence. Krath frowned and tried to contact them. No response. He sent a patrol to investigate. They found the security posts empty. Equipment was disabled but not damaged. No signs of fighting. No indication of how the guards had been removed. The patrol searched the area carefully but found nothing. In the observation room, the mood changed. This was not supposed to happen. Several commanders leaned forward in their seats. Ambassador Haywan allowed herself a small smile. Maybe her team knew something the aliens did not. Krath studied his screens with new attention. The humans were still visible on sensors, moving toward the installation. But now he wondered what he was actually seeing. Were those really all 5 humans? Or were some of those sensor readings decoys? Distractions? For the first time, the general felt a touch of uncertainty. These humans were not acting like amateurs. They were not making obvious mistakes. They moved like soldiers who knew exactly what they were doing. Soldiers who had done this before. Many times before, the exercise was just beginning. But already something felt wrong. Already the aliens were reacting instead of controlling. Already the humans had taken the first small advantage. And in warfare, small advantages could become decisive victories. The shuttle docked with Station Arcturus Prime 3 hours later. By then, word of the exercise results had spread throughout the station. Crowds gathered near the docking bay. Some came out of curiosity. Others wanted to see the humans who had accomplished the impossible. The airlock opened and Taesung stepped through first. He still wore his dusty combat gear. His face showed fatigue but remained calm and professional. Behind him, his team emerged one by one. They looked tired but stood straight and maintained dignity. The crowd parted as they walked through. No one spoke at first. The silence felt heavy with surprise and reassessment. These small humans had defeated a force 10 times their size. They had done it without superior weapons or advanced technology. They had done it with skill, endurance, and tactics. General Krath waited near the docking bay entrance. He had arrived an hour earlier on a faster transport. His expression was difficult to read. Alien faces did not always translate emotions clearly to humans. But Taesung saw something in the general's eyes that had not been there before. Respect. Krath stepped forward and faced Taesung directly. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the Vraxian general raised one of his forearms in what his species used as a salute. Taesung returned the gesture with his own military salute. The crowd began to murmur with approval. The general spoke clearly so everyone could hear. He admitted he had been wrong. He had underestimated human capabilities based on appearance and assumptions. The exercise had taught him a valuable lesson. Never judge a warrior by their size or equipment. Judge them by their results. Taesung accepted the apology with a slight nod. He thanked Krath for organizing the exercise. It had been challenging and educational. He meant that sincerely. Testing themselves against alien forces had revealed areas where human tactics needed adjustment. Learning went both ways. Ambassador Haywan pushed through the crowd and reached her team. She looked relieved and proud. She had watched every minute of the 11-hour exercise. She had seen things that amazed her. Things she would report back to Earth. Things that would change how humanity interacted with the galaxy. The formal debrief was scheduled for the next day. The human team was given quarters to rest and recover. They showered, ate, and slept for several hours. When they woke, they found requests for interviews from dozens of alien media outlets, questions from military commanders, even invitations to social events from delegates who had ignored them before. The debrief took place in a large conference room. Senior military commanders from 20 species attended. The room was full of flags, insignias, and the quiet tension of important discussion. Taesung and his team sat at a table facing the assembled leaders. A senior commander from the Yelthan Commonwealth asked the first question. How did humans train for such operations? Taesung explained that human special forces underwent years of preparation. Physical conditioning, tactical training, psychological preparation. The goal was to create soldiers who could operate independently in any environment. Another commander asked about the infiltration techniques. How had they bypassed so many sensors and guards? Yuna answered that question. She explained they studied the defensive systems carefully and found weaknesses. Every system had flaws. Success came from patient observation and precise execution. The questions continued for 2 hours. Some focused on technical details. Others asked about philosophy and training methods. The human team answered honestly but carefully. They revealed some information but kept critical details classified. Allies deserved cooperation, but complete transparency served no one. Then an elder commander from the Prithian assembly asked the question that everyone had been thinking. A simple question with profound implications. How many wars has humanity fought? The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Taesung. The commander considered his answer carefully. He could give a political response, something diplomatic and vague. But these military leaders deserved honesty. They needed to understand what humanity was. Thousands, Taesung said quietly. Humanity has fought thousands of wars, major conflicts between nations, minor skirmishes between cities, civil wars, religious wars, territorial wars. Humans have been fighting since before they developed writing, before they built civilizations. Fighting is woven into human history at every level. The room remained silent as alien commanders processed this information. Some species in the Galactic Council had never experienced war. They had evolved on peaceful worlds and maintained peace throughout their history. Other species had occasional conflicts, maybe 1 or 2 per generation, but thousands of wars? That suggested something different. A species that never stopped fighting. A species that developed war into an art form and a science. A species that understood violence in ways most civilizations could not imagine. Yuna added context to her commander's words. She explained that warfare shaped human culture and technology. Military necessity drove innovation. Competition between armies produced better tactics and equipment. Every generation of humans learned from previous conflicts and improved. This continuous evolution created something unique. Human military doctrine was not theoretical. It was built on actual experience across thousands of years. Success and failure both taught lessons. Those lessons were recorded, studied, and passed down. The Prithian elder asked a follow-up question. Did humans enjoy warfare? Were they naturally violent? Taesung shook his head. Most humans preferred peace. They valued family, creativity, and progress. But history had taught them a harsh lesson. Those who were not prepared for war often became victims of it, so humanity maintained military forces. They trained soldiers to high standards. They studied warfare constantly, not because they loved fighting, but because they understood its reality. Peace was precious, but peace had to be protected by those capable of war. After the debrief ended, several commanders approached Taesung privately. Krath was among them. The Varaxian general asked if Earth would be willing to establish military cooperation agreements, share training methods with allied forces, help other species improve their defensive capabilities. Taesung said he would relay the request to Earth's leadership. He believed cooperation would benefit everyone. But he also warned that some lessons could not be taught in classrooms. Some knowledge came only from experience, from facing real danger and overcoming it. Krath understood. He thanked the human commander again and promised that Vraxian forces would study the exercise carefully. There was much to learn from how the humans had operated. Tactics to adapt, principles to consider. The galaxy's military forces would be stronger for this lesson. Over the next few days, the atmosphere toward humanity changed dramatically. Species that had dismissed Earth now sought meetings with human delegates. Trade agreements were proposed. Cultural exchanges were suggested. Military alliances were discussed. Ambassador Hai Wan found herself busier than ever. She met with representatives from dozens of species. All wanted to understand humanity better. All recognized that they had misjudged these newcomers. The small species from Earth had capabilities that demanded respect. On their last evening on the station, Taesung's team gathered privately. They shared a meal and reflected on what had happened. Yuna asked if the commander thought their demonstration would have lasting effects. Would respect fade once the excitement died down? Taesung considered the question carefully. Respect built on fear alone never lasted. True respect came from consistent actions over time. The exercise had opened doors. Now humanity had to prove itself worthy of walking through them. That would take years of diplomacy, cooperation, and continued excellence. Daewon raised his glass in a toast. To proving ourselves, he said simply. The others joined the toast. They drank together, 5 soldiers who had changed history without seeking glory. They had simply done their jobs to the best of their abilities. The next morning, the human delegation prepared to depart. Their shuttle waited in the docking bay. As Taesung and his team walked through the station one last time, aliens stopped to watch them pass. Some offered respectful nods. Others made gestures of appreciation in their own cultural ways. Krath met them at the airlock. He presented Taesung with a small token, a Vraxian military honor typically reserved for exceptional warriors. The commander accepted it with genuine thanks. He offered his own gift in return, a patch from Earth's Special Operations Command. Simple cloth with human symbols, but its meaning was clear. The shuttle departed Station Arcturus Prime and set course for Earth. Inside, the team settled in for the long journey home. They would return to their normal duties. More training, more missions. Most of their work would remain classified and unknown. But this mission had been different. This time, the galaxy had watched. This time, humanity had shown what it could do. Not through weapons or threats. Through skill, determination, and the hard-won experience of a species that had survived countless conflicts. Behind them, on Station Arcturus Prime, alien military commanders began redesigning their training programs. They incorporated lessons from the exercise. They studied human tactics and adapted them to their own forces. The galaxy was learning. And far away on Earth, military leaders received reports of the exercise with quiet satisfaction.